Hey everybody, Even Steven here. Today we're going to look at Pitchcar, the dexterity game where you're going to be flicking your car disc around the track trying to get first place. I'm going to give you some tips for playing and a quick debrief so you can see if you are interested in this game. The first tip I have for teaching Pitchcar is building the track itself. The track is built out of pieces that are these heavy particle board material with this hard slate on top, and you're going to be piecing them together in a puzzle to create a track. My first tip is to make sure you start off with simple tracks that players can easily get through with not a lot of curves at first, as to gain their footing before you move on to the harder, more difficult tracks. When teaching new players, I also make sure to let them get a warm-up to get a feel for how to flick the car. Remember in Pitchcar that you need to flick the car around the track, making sure that its car side is face up. On your turn, you simply flick the disc, and as long as it stays in play, you will flick your car from the next location on your next turn. However, if your car flips over or goes off the track, you will go back to where you started. The first tip for flicking in Pitchcar that I use is to make sure to tell players not to flick as hard as they can, because they might go flying off of the track. A little bit of power goes a long way, so if players flick as hard as they can, they might go flying off of the track. Whereas if they use a little bit of power, they can go a short way and make sure that they stay safely on the track. Another tip I have for teaching players how to flick is sometimes I don't even pull my finger back like this. I simply flick my finger like this. It helps the car stay in a straight line and helps reduce power so that you don't go flying off the track, and it allows you to be more accurate. The next tip I have for players is for when you have another player in front of you that might be blocking your direct path, sometimes you might have to use the rails along the outside of the track. In this instance, if we can flick and curve around this track, we can get ahead of this red player. So if we flick and use that rail, we can now get around him, and you can use it to your advantage. Using the rails is especially important when you're going around curves, as you can use it to gain momentum to slide into the lead in front of your opponents. Even if you give it a lot of power, the rails keep you in play. Another tip for new players is to use their car position to their advantage. For example, this red player is almost to the finish line. However, if this blue player can flick ahead of them and block their path, it's going to make it a lot tougher for red to get to the finish line. So if they can flick just ahead of the red car, that means their next shot will be a lot tougher. A tip I have for building new Pitchcar tracks is if you want a more difficult setting for you Pitchcar experts, you can take off these rails to make it much harder to stay on the track. However, if you're playing with a lot of new beginners, I recommend using as many of these rails as you can, as it helps them stay on the track and keep their confidence up. As a track builder, you also need to keep in mind how many players are playing the game. For example, with 8 cars, this track is going to get very crowded, so you might need to build a larger track to spread all of the cars out to give you a more enjoyable experience. The next tip I have for Pitchcar is if you end up enjoying the experience, there are 6 expansions that you can get that add different pieces to your track that you can add or subtract to your choice. For example, there's a curve with 2 channels that you have to go through. There's an actual jump where you have to go over it. There's a channel which can really block up other players. There are half straights and half curves. When you come back around your track, you actually have to flick through the tunnel. And last but not least, there are even holes on the track where you can actually flick in and lose your space on the board. There's even a 3D part where you would go up on another track above the others. And what's nice about this is you can introduce piece by piece to not overwhelm new players on a new track. One of my final tips for Pitchcar is the actual finish. When you do finish, a lot of times I like to have new players do multiple races on short courses as to build their confidence, and if they're in last place, that gives them an opportunity for the next race to make up for it, to maybe get first then. Also, another thing I like to do with a big group of players is split up into 2 teams. And for each place finish, I like to award points. So first place might get 10 points, second place might get 8 points. This way, even if you are in one of the last 2 spots, your point total matters for your overall score for your team. And you can do multiple races of this to really make it a big grandiose tournament style. Okay guys, that's all the time we have for today. Hopefully that got you interested in Pitchcar. It's a great party dexterity game. We'll see you next time. Let me know in the comments, do you have any other tips for teaching Pitchcar or for new players? Let me know. And do you build large tracks? Do you have any custom tracks or rules that you use? Let me know. We'll see you next time.